Have you ever had a snake that was just a picky eater and wouldn't take a meal for you? Well, I'm gonna give you guys some tips and tricks that can help you guys with your finicky eaters. My name is Nick Pulaski. Ever since I was young, I've had two passions, wildlife and filmmaking. My goal is to combine those two passions to make wildlife content. My passion for wildlife and my collection of exotic species is constantly growing. Come follow along as I pursue my goals of educating, inspiring, exploring, and conserving wildlife, all while having fun, seeing the beauty of our natural world. So as you can see, I'm holding my pied ball python male. He is looking absolutely stunning, fresh out of shed, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're actually talking about finicky eaters, and ball pythons are actually notorious for this. If you have a ball python, you may know this right now, or you may be struggling with it, or it could be any kind of snake. Snakes go off of food for multiple different reasons, but today I'm going to help you with some tactics that could help with your picky eaters. Now right off the bat, it's good to note that snakes can go off of food for multiple different reasons. One of the reasons could be that their habitat needs are not met. Another reason could be that they're in shed or they're about to be in shed. Could simply be stress in general, could be possible sickness, or they could just be on a fast, which for ball pythons especially, it is very common for the species to go on a hunger strike. So don't fear if your snake hasn't eaten for like a month or so. That's just a common thing. Snakes can go actually months without eating. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to list some tips off for you guys that'll help you in the long run when you're trying to feed your animals. So I will say right off the bat that if you are in doubt about your animal's health and he is looking kind of malnourished, skinny, anything like that, or sick, I would recommend that you consult a vet, specifically one that works with reptiles. That way your reptile gets the proper attentive care that it needs. So a simple feeding tip right off the bat, you want to make sure that you're feeding with tongs or some sort of utensil rather than your hand. It's normally best, some people still use their hands, and in doing that you're actually confusing the animal because they can't tell between you and the prey animal. They could actually go for you. So it's better to be safe than sorry and avoid getting bit and not interrupting the feeding process. Going in with tongs is a lot safer.
Here it comes. Let's raise him up, let's get him out here a little bit. Sees it. And just like that.
Another thing is monitor any live feedings that you do. I have heard many horror stories of people that just kind of walk away and then they leave their animal unattended with a prey item, and then the prey item actually starts gnawing on the snake because the snake is not interested in the food, and in doing that, that actually can lead to an infection and all sorts of different health problems that could lead to the animal dying. I have seen that also. It's very sad. So yeah, just make sure you monitor any live feedings. So a nice feeding trick that I do if a snake is kind of being finicky is with frozen thawed rodents. What I do is when I'm thawing them out, I let them thaw for about 30 minutes to an hour, and then once they're thawed, I actually reheat the water, and then I put them back in there for another 5 minutes, just so when they're out, they're nice and hot, so that the snakes pick up on the prey item a lot better. I found that to be a useful tactic because the prey item is nice and reheated, so with it being reheated, the snake could actually go for it. It may be more enticed. So some snakes are actually really shy when you're feeding them, like my big female rat snake that I've been showing you guys in the past videos, but she does not take off the tongs, but she will take food if I leave it in the cage as an offering and then shut the lights off. That entices her to take the meal. So shutting the lights off and leaving the food item in the cage, you can leave the food item there for a couple hours, or you can check back in the morning. Or if you put it in there right before you go to bed and check back in the morning, normally I'd say about 7 times out of 10 the prey item should be gone. Honestly, they're probably just a little self-conscious about letting people watch them eat. So this next tip has actually been a big debate in the reptile hobby, and I've done it both ways, and I actually started this way when I first started keeping reptiles when I was younger. But feeding outside of the cage is not something necessary that you have to do. If you're offering outside the cage, that is fine, but normally if you're doing that and the animal isn't taking food, it's probably because the animal is stressed because it's not in its main environment. So offering food inside the cage is nothing that's going to make the animal think that you're a prey item, because you have to think you're always putting your hand in there anyway to do cleanings and taking them out and holding them and handling them. So if you're doing all that, then the animal can differentiate between you and a prey item. So feeding inside the cage is something I've been doing in practice for years now, and I've had no problem whatsoever. So I recommend you guys do the same and see what kind of outcomes you guys get. So this is actually a little tip that I discovered a couple years ago that I was recommended for some ball pythons that just would not eat for me for months, and they still would not take a meal from me, which again is a common thing for ball pythons. They do fast, but what I found to work for them, and actually a king snake as well, is I actually went to a pet store that I know and trust, and they sold hamsters there. Now I didn't feed the snake the hamsters from there, but what I did was I actually asked them if I could take some of the hamster bedding, and what I did was I took that home, I thawed out the rodent, and then I patted the rodent down on some used hamster bedding, and then directly after that I offered it to the snake, and within an instant the snake took. So I found that to be useful in an effort to beat hunger strikes. So the last thing I will say is you can resort to assist feeding. Now with this I will say say you don't want to do it if you have no experience whatsoever in doing this. You could potentially hurt the animal in doing this, so it is best to go to someone that does have excellent experience in doing assist feedings, but this is absolutely a last ditch effort to put weight on the snake. And what assist feeding is essentially doing is it's not throwing the whole meal down the snake's throat, it's actually putting some of it down the gullet of a snake, and then they normally will take on from there, triggering the feeding response. But if you're doing it incorrectly, it could hurt the snake, so I would recommend this being a last ditch effort, that you consult someone that has experience if you don't have good experience prior yourself. So those are going to be some tips and tricks that I have in order to fix hunger strikes and finicky eaters. If you guys have any other ones down in the comments, please by all means leave them. We're all in this together in the reptile hobby, so leave suggestions. So I hope you guys found today's video informative. If you could do me a couple favors and let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of this video, as well as put down suggestions down below if you have any other feeding tips and tricks. And if you could also like my video and subscribe to my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. And until next time, I will see you guys soon.